Hello and welcome to our 16th session, and in this session we are now going to work on the works or the project section. So to begin with, I have launched Visual Studio Code and I am as usual going to run npm run dev, and this is going to run the application, and once the application starts, it is in port 5173. I will control click it and this is going to open here. So as of now you can see we have completed the hero section, about section, experiences section, and last class we completed this actual text section. The very next section we are going to work is on this work section. And how is this work section going to look? So in the site, so here the work section, so if you scroll down you can actually see this is the work. So you can put all your projects in the cards like this, which gets animated like this. So for this I will close this, I will come back here to app.jsx, and after text I am going to come to work and I am going to control click on works to open the work section. So I will close all other things here, and this work section is present in components. You see this works.jsx. Now as usual we are going to start with the imports. We are going to import all the required component, import, and I am going to call this tilt, and this tilt, it is coming from React tilt. If you remember, we had used this component in our file when we actually built this about section. I will end this with semicolon, and in the next line, the next thing I am going to import is, this time I am going to add flower bracket, and inside this I am now going to call motion, and this motion is coming from frame of motion. Coming to the line end, the next thing I am going to import is, I am going to import styles, and this styles is coming from // style. And after this I am going to next import one new component now, and that is we are going to use a GitHub logo, take the user to the GitHub page. So for this I am going to call this GitHub, and this GitHub is coming from /assets. And after this the next thing is the component that we created in our last two classes before, and that is section wrapper, and this section wrapper is going to come from /hoc, high order components. Then I am going to import next projects. This contains the actual content, and this is coming from /constants. And finally we are going to import some components, and these are in open closed flower bracket. The first one I am going to import is this fade in, and then comma. The next one is the text variant, and both of these are imported from this /utils motion folder. So after importing all the components, okay, here inside the works I am now going to select this div, I am going to delete it, and I am going to just add a wrapper, that is one lesser than greater than sign, and I have created the wrapper. And why are we using this wrapper? This is because in the end, in the export, instead of exporting works directly, we are going to call this section wrapper, and in open close brackets we are going to export our component works, comma, and the ID name that we are going to give it, as of now I will keep it empty, and I am going to end it with semicolon. And now coming back into our wrapper here, now here inside this we are going to call the same component that we called in the previous sessions. Like this, we called this introduction overview. Either I can open about or the experience page. So any one page I will open the experience page here, and if you come here, we had added one motion div here. I am going to select this entire motion div component. I am going to right click and I am going to copy this. I will close this experience.jsx, come into works, and I will press enter, and here I will come and right click and I am going to paste this works executed by me. Below, instead of work experience, I am going to add here projects and end it with a period. and then I will go to file and I am going to save this. Actually, for this section wrapper to refresh the page once, and then if I now move down, now here as you come down here, see below this you are now seeing work executed by me and project. Good. Now for our card section, below this motion div, I am going to come and add one more div, and this div I will press enter, and for this div I am going to call for certain class name, and the class name I am going to call are, first is width will be full, and then I am going to call this flex. So inside this flex now I am going to come into this, and I am now going to add motion.p tag, and I am going to end this tag, and inside this tag, before I add any content, we are going to add some properties to this motion tag. The first property I am going to add is, I am going to add variants, and the variants I am going to add is, the first variant I am going to add is fade in. I am going to add fade in, and like last time, inside the parenthesis this is going to have 4 values. The first one is from where it should fade, I will leave it blank, and then comma, and which is the first object from which the initial object, that also I will leave it blank, and after this I am going to next set the duration of fade. I will set it to around 0.1 second. This is duration of delay after which the fade should start, comma, and finally the duration of the fade I will set it to 1 second. And after this, the next thing is, I am also going to add it some class names, and the class name that I am going to use here is margin top mt3, then space, I am going to give it a text secondary color, and then press space. Then I am going to set this text size in square bracket. I am going to set it to 17 pixel, and I am going to close this, and later on max width will be 3xl, and then you have leading equal to in square bracket 30 pixel at the closing square bracket. So these are the components we are going to add. And now in a Word document, I have written a few words about all the projects I have executed. You can write anything you want. Okay, write a brief description about the projects that you have done. Here I have wrote as a testimonial to my skills I hereby showcase. So I have written some text here. I will right click and copy this, and I will come here and I am going to paste this, and I will go to view and word wrap to wrap it around. And now if I save and preview the page, you can see a small write up appearing about my project. Now below this div, that is after adding this div, below this entire div, I am going to come down, and now I am going to create a new div, and this div is going to hold all the project cards. Again I am going to allot some class names. So the class name I am going to use here is, the first class is, I will give it margin top mt20, and then it will be flex. Then I will add flex wrap, so that when the size decreases it is going to shrink. Then gap I am going to set it to 7. Now here if I again come into this constants folder index.js, where we have kept all our content inside this folder, if I scroll down, after the experiences here you have testimonials, and then now you see projects, and in the project this is again a list, and in list each item has a name component, name object, and we have set it to the name. Then we have a description, and then we have added some tags. Okay, so this has been added. So in the tags we have added some 3 tags, and then we have got an image and then source code link, and this is what is added here, and we are going to call this list items one by one. And how are we going to do it? As usual, here in the next line, I am now going to, in a flower bracket, call the projects that we have imported from the constant.js, and I am going to map it to take each list item one by one. And in this, I am going to add this parenthesis, and inside this parenthesis, we are going to use two parameters. One is the project and another is the index. And later, I am going to come out of this, and here I will add an equal sign and greater than sign, and again I will add parenthesis, and then inside this, in lesser than sign, I will add it. This component we have not yet created. I am just going to type project card, and I am going to press enter, add forward slash and close this. And for this project card, I am going to give two main parameters. The first is the key, and this key will be equal to, in flower bracket, in open close flower bracket, I am now going to add a tilde key because this is a code block. I am going to call project hyphen then dollar, and in this flower bracket I am now going to call the index. Thing that I am going to add will be, I am going to add another flower bracket, and now open and close flower bracket, and inside this I will add 3 dots, and I am going to call project. Means all other components present in the project will now be called here. And now above this, I am also going to call one more component, that is index, that is equal to, in flower bracket, index. Okay, so we have added this component, and now if I save this and come to my screen, now the code breaks. You will be seeing the errors in the console. Why? We have not declared this project card at all. So to declare it, again I will come to the top here, and after these imports, I am going to call const and this project card. Now this project card will be equal to an empty function. I will add the parenthesis, and that is equals and greater than sign, and then for this project card, now I am going to add this flower bracket, and before I write any code, I have to import a lot of parameters here. And what parameters I have to import, this how am I going to come to know is, if you come back to this constant index.js file, you can now see here every project has name, description and tags has name and color, and then you have image and source code link, and these are the things available in every items here. See, for every item you are seeing this. Okay, so I will come back here to the workplace, import them one by one. I will add a flower bracket, and the first thing I am going to call is index. I will add a comma. I will then import name and comma. Then I am going to import description. Okay, be careful when you type. You can directly come to index.jx and you can copy it directly from here. Okay, so after description, the tags, comma, then I am going to add image, comma, then I am going to call source code link. So importing all these things, now coming inside this flower bracket, this is going to return in open close parenthesis. Now inside this return, now I am going to call motion.div, and I am going to close this, and to just test whether everything is working fine, inside this I am just going to write project, and I am going to save this. So as soon as I save this, now if you come over here, see in the project I have 3 projects and you are seeing this name project appearing 3 times. Now, this motion div component is going to have a variant. The variant that I am going to call here is, we have already used this. This is the fade in variant, and in open close bracket, the first parameter we give this is in inverted comma. This is going to appear from up. The animation is going to appear from up, comma. Then the type of animation will be spring. This is a type of animation, comma. Then I am going to, for the duration or the delay, after how much time this should start. For this, I am going to call the index of every item and I am going to multiply it by 0.5, so that the items appear one after another. The duration of animation will be 0.75, and this to check it, I will just reload it, and when I reload it, you can see this project appearing one by one from the bottom. Now, inside this motion div, now instead of adding the project, we are now going to call the component tilt, and I am going to close this tag. So, the options, I will press enter, and in the next line, the options I am going to add to this will be equal to, and in open close flower brackets, the first option I will add one more flower bracket, and inside this the option I am going to add is the max. I am going to set it to 45, comma, then scale I will set it to 1, comma, then speed colon I will set it to 450. Now, I am going to call the class names, and the class that I am going to apply to this will be in open close inverted comma. I am going to add first the color. The color will be background color, BG tertiary, and then I am going to give it a padding of 5, and then I am going to make it rounded with size of 2XL, and then I am then going to, on a smaller devices, colon, I am going to set its width equal to, in square bracket, 360 pixel px, close the square bracket, and in regular devices width will be full. So, now once I add this and if I save this, then immediately you can see here the cards appearing and they are also tilting. Now, for the card, I will come into this tilt and we are going to add a div, and this div I will press enter and come to next line. And now, inside this div I am now going to call class name, and the class name that I am going to call will be, first is relative, then W full, and later I am going to set its height equal to, in open square bracket I will add it 230 pixel and close it with square bracket, and I am going to save it. So, as soon as I save it, this appears like the cards like this, and actually if I increase the size, say automatically 2 will come in one row and it is going to get adjusted. So, right now we have added these 3 cards because we have 3 projects in our index.js. Now, inside this div, the first thing we are going to add is an image. I will call the img tag / and I will close it. This is a self closing tag, and inside this img I am going to set its source image src equal to, and in flower brackets I am going to call the image that we have declared here. Okay. So, the next thing is I will come out of this bracket, I am going to set its alt name in square bracket, this will be equal to name, and then I am also going to give it some class name, and the class name we are going to call is W full, that is width will be full, then height full, we are going to set both width and height to full. Then I am going to call object comma, and then I am going to make it look rounded to Excel. And after I add these things and if I save it, immediately you will now start seeing the images of our project over here. Now in these images, we want to provide a link on the top right corner. And to achieve this, I am going to come here and I am going to add a div. And for this div, I am going to give some classes. The class I am going to declare for this div will be, actually I am going to call this as absolute, because, and I will set its inset equal to 0, and then this will be a flags. Then I am going to justify it to end, and then I am going to set its margin to 3, and I am going to call the card hyphen img underscore hover. I am going to add one more div now, and for this div an action has to happen. For this, inside this div I am going to call this on click, and when you click inside this bracket, I am now going to call a callback function. The callback function will be, I will add open close bracket, then space equals greater than sign, and then I am now going to call this function window dot open, because this is now going to open a file, and in bracket we are going to add that link. That link is coming from source code link, comma, and where it will be displayed in inverted comma underscore blank. This means that this is going to open in an empty, that is page, on a separate page in the browser. So after this, I will come to next line, and I am now going to call some class names to it. And the class names that I am going to add here is, I am going to add black gradient, and the next thing is I am going to set its width to 10 and height to 10, and after this, see, as soon as I add width 10 and height 10, you will start seeing this gradient appearing on the right hand side. And now for this I want it to be round, so I am going to call the tailwind class rounded full, and if I save it, say automatically this now becomes rounded. And then I am going to call flex, and then I am going to justify it center, and also I am going to add items center, and finally I am going to add cursor pointer, and I am going to save it. So when I bring it here, the cursor changes to a pointer. Now inside this, now I am now going to add an image tag, a self closing tag, forward and closing tag, and inside this image tag, now I am going to first set its source equal to, in flower bracket, it will be equal to GitHub that we have imported at the top, and then the next thing is I am going to set the alt text here to be equal to GitHub, and then I am going to add some classes. The class name I am going to add here is, I am going to set its width to half and height to half, and I am going to call object contain. And once I apply this and once I save this, you can immediately see the GitHub logo appearing over here. Now here, in case if you have two links, one for the GitHub source and another for the actual website or the actual project, what you can do is you can come to index.js, and inside this index.js Instead of this one source code link, you can add two: source code link 1, source code link 2. And coming to work.js, here when you import, you can add these both source code link 1 and source code link 2. And then here what you can do is you can select this entire div, copy this, and if you paste it and if you save it, see, you can have two links just next to other. So if it is required, you can do it like this. So right now I will press Ctrl Z and I am going to actually remove that copy and I am going to save it. Now the next thing is, we have the image of the project, we have the link, and we need to give the name and the description. And after the last div, that is before the tilde, I am going to now create a new div. And for this div, I am going to add the class name. I am going to give it the class name MT5, meaning that margin top 5. Below this, I am now going to add an H3 tag, and inside this H3 tag, in flower bracket, I am going to render the name. I will close with flower bracket, and then I will add another P tag, and in this I will again add this flower bracket, and inside this now we are going to render this description. And adding these two, if I save it, so immediately you can now see here every project has a head tree and also the description. Only thing is we have to style this a little better. Now for this H3, I am going to style it by using the class name. I am going to make the text appear white. I will add text -5, and then font I am going to set it to bold, and I am going to, and then text hyphen, and in square bracket I am going to set its size to 24px, and I will close the square bracket. And now if I save this, so immediately you can see the titles is bold and it is appearing fine. Now for this P, I am going to call the class name. The first class I am going to call is text color. I am going to select the secondary color. Then the next thing is I am going to set the text hyphen, and in square bracket I will type 14 pixel as the size and close it. And now if I save this, see, you can now see this is appearing fine. And one last thing we need is the tags. And if you come to index.js, these tags are again a list, and each has some 3-4 tags with the name. And for this purpose, below this div, after this description and the name, I am going to create one more div, and for this div again we are going to add some classes. The class I am going to add for this is, I am going to set its margin top empty to 4, then I am going to call flex, then flex wrap, and later finally I am going to set a gap of 2 units. And inside this I am now going to add a flower bracket, and inside the flower bracket we are going to call the tags, and this tags we are going to map it to go through each tag one by one, and in open close regular bracket, and inside that I will add one more open close. The parameter we are going to use is tag, and this tag I will add an equals and greater than sign, one more bracket, and inside this now we are now going to call a p tag, and this p tag is actually going to render. I am going to add hashtag, and then in flower bracket this is going to render tag.name, and then after this I will add a semicolon, and for this p we are going to add some classes. The first thing we want is we are going to add it a key, which is equal to, and in flower bracket this will be equal to tag dot name. And after this we are going to call class name, and this class name now, instead of inverted comma, I will use flower bracket, and I am going to call the tilde key because this is a dynamic code. I am going to set text size is equal to square bracket 14 pixel, and then I am going to actually add dollar, and in this flower bracket I am going to set tag dot color, so that the tag color is coming dynamically from the tag color. And after this, if I now adding all this, now if I save this, so immediately below every card you can see the tags appearing here. Okay, so now we have completed this project section. So I will just refresh the page, and if required I will drag it and see it how it appears. So you can just go through the entire site that we have built till now, and we have now completed this project section. And one next section that we have to deal will be the testimonial section, and we are going to do it in our next session.